Geneva, Switzerland, 1st of July, 2025. A 13-year-old boy stares at his computer screen while the world sleeps. Max Logan has just detected something that will shake the foundations of everything we think we know about the universe. On his monitor, an astronomical alert flashes. Confirmed interstellar object. Designation, Atlas. But Max isn't smiling. His hands tremble because he predicted this exactly 6 months ago, and now it's here. He whispers to himself, "This is no coincidence." They opened the door. Max is no ordinary child. At 8 years old, he solved equations that baffled university physicists. At 12 years old, he created a mathematical model linking particle collisions at CERN to disturbances in interstellar space. No one took him seriously until now. Atlas isn't behaving as it should. It's massive, 1,000 times larger than previous interstellar objects, and spewing jets of water vapor like an uncontrollable cosmic geyser. In his calculations, this behavior matches exactly what would happen if an object were pulled through a gravitational anomaly, a portal. Max calls his mother from his room, transformed into a makeshift laboratory. Elena enters with a cup of tea. She's seen Max obsessed before, but never with this degree of urgency. Max explains, eyes fixed on the screen, that CERN accelerated particles to unprecedented levels in April, exactly 3 months before Atlas appeared. The numbers don't lie. Beneath the border of Switzerland and France, the Large Hadron Collider rests silently. This 27-kilometer machine accelerates protons to near the speed of light, recreating Big Bang conditions. Max believes they did something more, something irreversible. Elena watches her son. There's absolute certainty in his eyes, and it frightens her. Max opens 3 windows on his computer, showing the pattern. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, now Atlas in 2025. Each one larger, each appearance coinciding with an energy spike in CERN's collisions. Max hasn't slept in 30 hours, but this is just the beginning. What he'll discover in the coming days will change not just his life, but the fate of all humanity. He says with determination, "I need to speak with someone at CERN before it's too late, before something else comes through that portal." 3 days later, Max walks through CERN's corridors, a visitor's badge around his neck. The scientist's glances say it all. A child has no place here. Max clutches his laptop to his chest. Inside are 6 months of calculations no one wants to see. Dr. Philippe Rousseau will meet him in 5 minutes. He's the head of collision safety. If anyone can understand what Max has found, it's him. The door opens. Rousseau is a 60-year-old man with a gray beard and tired eyes. He says, with a pronounced French accent, that Max has 10 minutes. Max gets straight to the point. Atlas didn't arrive by chance. It was drawn by a gravitational anomaly created during the April 15 collision, which reached 14.6 teraelectronvolts. His calculations suggest that for 0.3 of a second, a microscopic dimensional rift formed. Rousseau sighs. He's heard such theories before. Max interrupts, explaining that before 2017, no interstellar object had ever been detected in the history of astronomy. Now 3, all after CERN reached unprecedented energies. Max turns his laptop, showing a graph with CERN's energy peaks overlaid on the dates of interstellar object appearances. The correlation is unsettling, too perfect to be coincidence. Rousseau studies the graph. His expression shifts. Max continues, explaining that the higher the energy, the shorter the arrival time and the larger the object. The statistical probability of this being chance is 1 in 847 million. Rousseau asks what he suggests doing. Max takes a deep breath. This is the part that scares him. They need to stop the collisions immediately, because each new collision widens that rift, and what comes through could be far worse than space rocks. Rousseau explains that halting the collider would cost millions and delay critical research. Max replies that when they realize he was right, it'll be too late. The doctor escorts Max out, promising to review the data. Max steps into Geneva's cold, knowing Rousseau won't act until disaster strikes. His phone vibrates. It's an email from an astronomer in Chile with the subject, "Anomaly in Atlas. Impossible data." Max opens the message. His hands shake again, because what he sees confirms his worst nightmare. Something is waking, and they brought it here. Max opens the Chilean astronomer's attachment. On the screen, A spectrum of Atlas from the Las Silla Observatory, but there's something that shouldn't be there. A regular, pulsing, artificial frequency. The signal repeats every 41.7 of a second. No natural process produces such precise patterns. This is pure mathematics. It's deliberate. Elena enters, asking what he's found. Max replies that Atlas isn't just a rock, it's transmitting something. He plays the signal's converted audio. A deep, almost subliminal pulse fills the room. Elena feels a chill. There's something primal in that sound. Max begins typing frantically, converting the frequency into binary numbers. Suddenly, he stops and pales. He turns the screen to his mother, showing a sequence of numbers: 14.6, 27.0, 46.5, 175.0. Their latitude and longitude coordinates with the exact depth of CERN, precise to the centimeter. Atlas knows exactly where it came from, and it's responding. At that moment, 2,847 kilometers away, alarms blare in CERN's control center. Russo rushes to the monitoring room. Detectors pick up background radiation that shouldn't exist. An energy signature matching no known element. A technician checks the data, explaining it's not from here but from above, from space, as if something is responding to their collisions. Russo recalls Max's words and orders him found immediately. 30 minutes later, Max receives the call he both expected and dreaded. When he arrives at CERN, the atmosphere has completely changed. Scientists are running everywhere. Russo waits with a grave expression, explaining they've detected Atlas's signal synchronized with their collider. Every time they trigger a collision, the signal intensifies, as if feeding on their energy. Max feels the ground slip beneath him. It's not feeding, it's communicating. Atlas is a beacon, and they activated it when they opened that portal. Russo asks, "A beacon? For what?" Max replies, "For what's on the other side. To tell them where we are. To tell them the door is open." Then, all screens flicker, and a new message appears. Not random noise, but a complex mathematical pattern, a language. Max works to decode it for 5 minutes in absolute silence. Finally, he succeeds. It's a countdown to July 15, 2025. 12 days remain until something arrives or something awakens. CERN Conference Room. 3rd of July, 2025. 14 scientists from 6 countries surround a table. Max is the only minor, but perhaps the only one who fully understands what's happening. Russo begins, explaining that in the last 48 hours, they've detected anomalies defying their understanding. Atlas isn't just transmitting signals coordinated with their collisions, it seems to be altering the space-time around it. On the screen, data from the James Webb Telescope shows Atlas has grown. Its mass increased by 7% in 3 days. No comet does that. Russo proposes halting all collider operations until they understand what's happening. The room erupts in protests. They're in the middle of million-dollar experiments. Max shouts, standing, "Every collision widens the dimensional rift." Atlas isn't growing, it's receiving matter from the other side. They're feeding something they don't understand. Dr. Hammond laughs scornfully, saying it sounds like a Hollywood movie. Max approaches Hammond, reminding him he published a paper on dark matter in parallel dimensions. Russo intervenes, explaining that string theory requires at least 10 dimensions, and asks, "What if we accidentally touched one?" Max projects data from a specific April 15 collision, showing a strange pattern, an energy signature matching no known particle. 40.3 thousandths of a second, something that shouldn't exist did and left a trace. The room falls silent, observing undeniable data. Russo asks what he suggests doing. Max replies they must close the portal before the countdown hits 0, but he doesn't know how, because they don't truly know what they opened. Then, all lights flicker, and computers reboot. When they restart, a new message from Atlas appears. This time, not numbers, but an image, an impossible, familiar geometric structure. It's the collider, an exact map of its underground tunnel seen from space, as if Atlas scanned the entire Earth. Max corrects, feeling ice in his veins. It's not a scan, it's an instruction. They're showing exactly where to strike to fully open the portal. Geneva, 6th of July, 2025. Max hasn't slept in 4 days. His room is an improvised operations center, with screens and charts covering every wall. Elena watches her son consume himself in his obsession to save a world that still sees him as a scared child. Max responds, eyes glued to the monitors. They don't understand. They think in terms of conventional physics, but this is contact. Max has analyzed Atlas's transmissions and found something. The countdown isn't just time, it's temporal coordinates, specific moments when the barrier between dimensions is thinnest. July 15th is the anniversary of the Trinity test, the first nuclear explosion in 1945, exactly 80 years, as if something has been watching since then. His phone rings. It's Rousseau, explaining they're under pressure from governments wanting to keep the collider running. They need definitive proof. Max replies they'll have it when it's too late. That night, Max hacks CERN's communication system and sends a message to every astronomical observatory worldwide, asking them to point their telescopes at Atlas and document everything. Within hours, hundreds of telescopes are trained on the object, and they start seeing what Max already knew. Atlas isn't alone. An Australian astronomer first detects a strange reading, like a second object, but it doesn't reflect light, visible only by how it warps the stars behind it. Then one in India confirms multiple objects. Finally, from Hawaii, the observation that changes everything. These aren't objects, but an intelligent artificial structure assembling itself. Max receives these transmissions in real time. He calls Rousseau, who explains they're in an emergency session with the UN, and military forces from 5 countries are on alert. Max asks if they're going to shoot at something from another dimension. Rousseau replies that the world is scared, and when it's scared, it does foolish things. Max looks out his window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, something is waking, and they have 9 days to decide. Max suddenly says there's a third option no one's considering. Rousseau asks, what? Max replies, what if we're not being invaded, but tested? Atlas could be a test to see if we're smart enough to close what we opened. Rousseau says he hopes a 13-year-old boy is enough to save the entire species, because the adults clearly aren't managing. CERN Operations Center, 9th of July, 2025. The room is filled with military personnel, politicians, and scientists. Max is 50 years younger than everyone else, but now they all listen to him, because Atlas just did something no one can ignore. On the screens, images from the James Webb Telescope show the impossible. The structure around Atlas has fully materialized. It's neither a ship nor an artifact, it's pure geometry. A perfect dodecahedron, 47 kilometers in diameter, suspended in the void, defying all known physical laws. Max explains to a stunned audience that it's made of dark matter, or more precisely, matter from another dimension that their instruments can only detect through its gravitational effect, but now it's interacting with their space-time, solidifying. A general asks if it's a threat. Max admits he doesn't know, but it hasn't done anything hostile, it's just there waiting. Max projects new data, explaining he's analyzed the transmissions and believes he's decoded part of the message. It's not a threat but an invitation to properly close the portal, to prove they understand what they've done. Atlas is waiting for them to perform a specific collision with exact parameters that will neutralize the dimensional rift. The general asks, what if it's a trap? Max acknowledges it's possible, but consider this, if they wanted to invade, why wait? They already have a city-sized structure floating in our solar system. If their intentions were hostile, they'd have acted by now. Dr. Wei speaks for the first time, explaining she's studied the transmission patterns, and Max is right. There's a mathematical elegance in the messages. It's not war communication but that of teachers, as if they're instructing us. Haymond asks, teaching us what? Max replies, to be responsible. We opened a door to another dimension without understanding the consequences. They detected it, and instead of destroying us, they're giving us a chance to fix it. Then, all screens go dark. The building plunges into darkness, backup generators kick in, but the computers don't respond, except one, Max's laptop. On his screen, a new message appears, this time not numbers or graphs but words in multiple languages. Do you understand? Final test, July 15th, 3 hours 14 minutes 15 seconds UTC. Coordinates attached, 1 opportunity. Choose wisely. Max translates the coordinates. They're the exact coordinates of the collider tunnel, and the time corresponds to the first 3 digits of pi. It's no coincidence, it's a sign. Those on the other side understand mathematics. They're demanding a collision at that precise moment. If they do it right, they'll close the portal. If they do it wrong or don't do it, the question remains open. The general says this requires presidential authorization. Russo replies they have 6 days, and bureaucrats will take months. Max says simply, then we'll have to do it without permission. The general warns that's treason. Max looks him in the eye and replies, no, it's survival. 11th of July, 2025. 4 days left. Max, at CERN, has turned a conference room into his operations base. The screens display parameters Atlas keeps transmitting, terrifying in their complexity. Max explains to a small group of scientists who've chosen to help him secretly that this isn't a standardish system. The translation to English with numbers written in words has been completed for the first part of the text, up to the point where the original response was cut off. Below, I will continue and complete the translation, ensuring all numbers are written in words to maintain consistency with the previous translations in German, Romanian, and Polish, as per your request. Continuation of revised translation to English. Collision. It requires synchronizing 3 particle beams simultaneously, but their collider can only handle 2. Heyman says, then it's impossible. Max admits not with the current setup, but he's worked on a modification. If they redistribute the energy and use the superconducting magnets in a way they weren't designed for, it might work. Russo interrupts, saying it could destroy the collider or worse. Max replies, we either save the world, or these are our options. Dr. Wei approaches Max's diagrams, saying it's brilliant, risky, possibly suicidal, but brilliant. Using harmonic resonance to create a third virtual beam could, in theory, work. Heyman asks, in theory? We're playing with forces that created the universe. Max responds in frustration that they're out of time. Atlas has started moving, getting closer, and when it reaches Mars' orbit, they won't stop what comes next. On the screens, real-time data shows Atlas accelerating with no visible propulsion. Space itself bends to let it pass. Wei notes in awe that it's manipulating gravity, as predicted by Einstein-Rosen equations. It's a bridge shortening as it approaches. Max explains that with each hour, more matter crosses from the other side. Atlas is growing, feeding. When it reaches Earth on July 15th, it'll have enough mass to permanently alter the gravitational field. A technician asks, what does that mean practically? Max replies grimly, tides will shift, satellites will fall from orbit, earthquakes will intensify, and eventually, the moon could be ejected from its orbit, all because of a rift we accidentally created. Russo explains he can get them 48 hours of exclusive collider access, but after that, the military will take over. They want to use nuclear missiles against Atlas. Wei warns that would be catastrophic. You can't destroy something made of dimensional matter with 3-dimensional weapons. Russo asks how long Max needs to prepare the collision. Max looks at his calculations, explaining that if they work non-stop, he can have final parameters in 36 hours, but programming the collider will take another 8 hours. They're cutting it close. Heyman, surprising everyone, says, then let's start now. He's spent 40 years in physics to understand the universe, and he won't let fear stop him from doing what's right. Max smiles for the first time in days, saying, okay, but you need to understand something. If this goes wrong, there's no second chance. We either close the portal correctly, or we open it fully, there's no middle ground. 14th of July, 2025. 16 hours to collision. Max is alone in the collider's control center. Outside, the military surrounds the complex. Inside, his allies sleep in makeshift rooms, needing rest for tomorrow. Max can't sleep. His phone vibrates. It's his mother, asking if it's true they're evacuating Geneva. Max confirms it's a precaution. If something goes wrong, the sentence hangs unfinished. Elena pleads for him to come home. He's a child, he shouldn't bear this burden. Max feels tears in his eyes, explaining he's the only one who can do this. Adults are too afraid of being wrong, while he's only afraid of not trying. Elena cries, saying his father would be proud. He was like that, believing he could change the world. Max asks if his father worked in particle physics. He never knew his father, who died when Max was 2 years old. Elena replies that he worked here, at CERN, 13 years ago. He was on the team that discovered the Higgs boson, but there was an accident, a radiation leak. The doctors said it was instantaneous. Max feels like he's been struck, asking why she never told him. Elena explains she didn't want him living in his father's shadow. She wanted him to find his own path, but it seems physics runs in his blood. Max looks around at the same corridors his father walked. Elena says that if something goes wrong, but Max interrupts, saying, "I have to say this. If something goes wrong, I want you to know I tried, I gave everything, and I'm not afraid." Elena replies that she's afraid. She's terrified of losing him. Max promises he won't lose her, that they'll see each other tomorrow. At midnight, Russo finds Max in the control room. He can't sleep either. Max reviews his calculations for the 10th time, searching for errors. Russo sits beside the boy, saying he's the brightest mind he's ever met. If there's an error, it's not because he didn't try. Max replies that doesn't comfort him, because an error means everyone dies. Russo explains he knew his father, his doctoral student. He too was obsessive, pushing himself to the limit, believing he could save the world. Max asks if he succeeded. Russo replies that he gave them the Higgs boson, changing physics forever, but paid the ultimate price. Max asks, what really happened? Russo sighs deeply, explaining that his father detected something during a 2012 collision, an anomaly, something that shouldn't exist. It's like what they're facing now. He wanted to investigate further, but the committee deemed it too risky. Your father disagreed. He entered the collider tunnel without authorization, and when they triggered an emergency collision, he didn't evacuate in time. Max, feeling an immense weight, says, he died doing what he loved. Russo confirms, explaining he chased truths, and now his son is about to finish what he started. They sit in silence, watching the numbers on the screens. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the rest of the team arrives. Max asks if everyone's ready. They nod silently. Max says, then let's begin. We have a portal to close. 15th of July, 2025, 2 hours 45 minutes. 30 minutes to the critical moment. CERN's control center is on maximum alert. Max stands at the main console, fingers trembling over the controls that will decide humanity's fate. A technician reports, superconducting magnet system online. Temperature 1.9 Kelvin stable. Wei says from her station, proton beams charging. Current speed 99.991% of light speed. Haymond adds, temporal synchronization activated, atomic clock calibrated to femtosecond precision. Max takes a deep breath. Outside, the military waits with orders to stop the experiment if anything goes wrong, but it's too late to stop. Protons accelerate, energy builds, and Atlas is exactly where they predicted. An astronomer reports via radio, 30 kilometers above the North Pole, completely stationary, waiting. Max whispers, it's watching. They want to see if we can do this. 3 hours 14 minutes remain. Wei says with concern that they're detecting fluctuations. Earth's magnetic field is shifting. Atlas is affecting the entire planet. Max replies he knows, which is why they must do it now. Russo confirms that if something goes wrong, they have 2.3 of a second to abort. After that, no turning back. Max looks at the equations on his screen. Thousands of variables, millions of possible outcomes, but only one correct sequence given by Atlas. 3 hours 10 minutes, 4 minutes remain. Haymond reports, energy at 14.6 teri-electronvolts, like the original collision, but this time they're ready. Max says, activating harmonic synchronization sequence. His fingers move over the controls with surgical precision. Primary beam ready, secondary ready, virtual generating. The screens show something impossible. A third particle beam materializes from nowhere, created by resonance. Wei whispers, incredible, it's working. The virtual beam is stable. 3 hours 13 minutes, 1 minute remains. Max feels the weight of 8 billion lives on his shoulders. If he miscalculated a single variable, if he overlooked one factor. Max asks, everyone final check, any anomalies? Responses come, negative. Systems optimal. Ready for collision. Max looks at the clock. 30 seconds. Atlas begins glowing brighter in the sky, as if it knows the moment has come. Max whispers, this is for my father and all who seek dangerous truths. 3 hours 14 minutes 15 seconds. 3 particle beams collide at a single point. For a moment shorter than a blink, something that should never exist in their universe is created. A controlled singularity, a closing door, a corrected error. Screens explode with light, alarms blare. The entire CERN structure shakes. Max falls from his chair, Wei screams, Haymond grips his console, then absolute silence. Lights stabilize, systems come back online, and data starts pouring onto the screens. A technician reports in a trembling voice, collision successful, no residual rift, no anomalous radiation. The portal is closed. Max struggles to his feet, asking, Atlas? Wei checks the astronomical data. Her eyes widen, it's completely gone, like it never existed. No trace, no signal, just empty space. Russo hugs Max. Scientists weep. Some laugh in pure relief. They did it. They really did it. But Max looks at one final transmission that arrived just as Atlas vanished. A simple, universal message. Test passed. Welcome. When you're ready for more, you'll know how to call us. 3 months later. October, 2025. Max Logan stands before the United Nations General Assembly. No longer just an ignored prodigy, he's the youngest human to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics. The boy who closed a portal to another dimension, the boy who saved the world. But Max, if a hero, feels like someone who barely averted a catastrophe created by his own species. Max begins, Honorable delegates, I'm here to speak about responsibility. For decades, humanity has pursued knowledge without fully considering the consequences. CERN did nothing wrong building the collider. They sought answers, but forgot to ask the most critical question, are we ready for the answers we'll find? The room is utterly silent. World leaders, scientists, journalists, all listen to this 13-year-old boy with reverence rarely granted to anyone. Max continues, explaining that Atlas was a warning, a test they nearly failed, but also a gift, because now they know with certainty they're not alone, that higher intelligences watch, assess, and decide if they're worthy of joining a larger cosmic community. Max pauses, letting his words sink in, before proposing an international council for scientific responsibility to evaluate experiments before they're conducted, not to halt progress, but to ensure that when they take the next step, they're truly ready for the consequences. Max finishes his speech and returns to his seat beside his mother. Elena squeezes his hand, whispering, You did well. That night, Max returns to Geneva. CERN has been reorganized with new safety protocols and newfound respect for the unknown. A commemorative plaque in the Collider tunnel reads, In memory of those who sought dangerous truths and in honor of the boy who saved the world from our own discovery. Below, his father's name, Dr. Michael Logan. 1979 to 2012. Max touches the plaque reverently, saying, We did it, Dad. We finished what you started. Russo approaches from behind, saying his father would be incredibly proud. Max asks if he thinks he knew something like this was possible. Russo replies that he believes his father understood the true frontier of science isn't discovering what we can do, but deciding what we should do. Max nods. Then he looks at the night sky visible through the building's windows. The stars shine quietly, but Max knows that behind that calm lies a living, conscious, observing universe. Max asks, Will they return? Russo replies, Without a doubt. The question is when, and when they do, will we be ready? Max smiles, Then I'd better get to work, because I have a feeling the next test will be much harder. Max Logan, the boy who saved the world, now has a new mission. To prepare humanity for the day when portals open not by accident but by invitation. And when that day comes, to ensure their species is ready not just to survive but to thrive in a far larger, stranger, and more wondrous universe than anyone imagined. This is the story of how a 13-year-old boy saved the world, not with weapons or politics, but with mathematics, courage, and the willingness to see truths others feared to acknowledge. And it's only the first story, for Max Logan is just beginning, and the universe is waiting.